Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Krucy does gardening and stuff. Today I'm going to be making some pumpkin and carrot puree soup. The recipe is basically just 3 cups of pumpkin, 1.5 cups of carrots, 4 cups of vegetable broth, 1 large onion, basically cut in pieces. The pumpkin's going to be cut in small cubes, and the carrots are going to be cut in small pieces also. The pumpkin I'm using, it's basically the pumpkin that I'm using that I use for Halloween, and I figured instead of throwing it out, I'd make a soup with it. The parsley, it's just a small amount to add to it. Since I'm using my Halloween pumpkin, I'm basically making 4 batches. So basically, the amounts that I gave you, just do it by 4 times, or depending on how much pumpkin you have. Like if you have enough pumpkin to make 6 batches, so basically it's just 3 cups times 6. So that would be 18 cups. So basically with the carrots and the vegetable broth, you basically just multiply it by the amount of pumpkin you have. So the onions you have to basically cook beforehand, and then you could add the pumpkins and carrots and then broth. So the onions are already cooked. I'm just going to add the pumpkin. The pumpkin, I basically peeled the skin off, and the sort of like the stringy part on the inside that the pumpkin where the seeds are, I basically just peeled the stringy part off, and I made it into cubes. So that's the pumpkin. Here's the carrots. Just gonna dump that in. Just gonna put the parsley. I guess if you wanted to make it in small pieces, but basically, I don't think it's really needed to make the parsley into small pieces, because at the end, after it's been cooked, I basically just pass it through the blender to puree it. So basically, the blender is going to make the parsley small. This is the vegetable broth. It's basically I'm basically using 1 liter containers. 1 liter is about 4 cups, so I'm basically just going to use 4 of these here, of the vegetable broth, since I'm basically doing 4 times the amount of the batch or the soup. Here's the 4th one. I'm just going to stir it up a bit. I'm going to put a bit of pepper. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. If you want more pepper after the soup's been made, when you're eating it, you can always add more. So it's up. You can always not. It's always better when you're making the soup to put a bit less than too much, because if you put too much, you can't take away what you already added. So add a bit of salt. I'm not gonna put too much, because the same thing with salt. It's always easier to add the salt when you're eating the soup. compared to when you're cooking it, because like I mentioned with the pepper, yeah, like I mentioned with the pepper, it's always if you put too much when you're cooking it, you can't take it away. So you can always add more salt and pepper when you're eating the soup afterwards. So I'm just gonna put the top on. Just looking for the holes. What I usually do is I wait for the soup to start boiling. Once it starts boiling, I quickly turn it down to simmer, because you don't want the soup to boil, otherwise it might make it taste a bit funny. Once it starts simmering, you let it cook for about 30 minutes or until everything becomes soft, all the carrots and the pumpkin. When I pass it through the blender, I'll just have another 1 or 2 pots on the side, so when you put it in the blender, I puree it, then I'll put it into an empty pot, because it's going to be kind of hard if I puree it and I put it back in here to, I guess, properly puree everything. So I'll be back after the soup's done. Right. Hi, sorry about that before. It was my phone that rang. I forgot to put the ringer on silent. So the soup is finished cooking. I had already put it through the blender. So that's what it basically looks like after it's been cooked and pureed through the blender. After it's been cooked, even if you have like some liquid with pieces of parsley and small pieces of stuff, I still pass it through the blender, just so you have small chunks of stuff. What I do is, after it's cooled down, I'll put it in plastic containers, and then I'll put it in the freezer. So at least if I want something quick to eat, I'll just pull out a container of soup from the freezer. One idea that I have is, I've noticed after some time of the soup being in the freezer, it'll create some frost on the top. Maybe what I was thinking of doing is, after it's frozen, to take one of those shrink, one of those what's it called? Like a food saver machine, to put the frozen soup into a bag and then kind of shrink wrap it with the food saver, so it doesn't get any frost on top of the soup. So I hope you guys found the video interesting about how to make carrot and pumpkin puree soup. Like I mentioned before, it's usually 3 cups of pumpkin, 1.5 cups of carrots, 1 large onion, 4 cups of vegetable broth, and some parsley, and you have it cook for 30 minutes after it started kind of boiling a tiny bit, but you turned the temperature down after it started boiling, and you cook it for 30 minutes with the temperature a bit low, and then the pumpkin and carrot should be soft by then, and then you could have it cool down for a bit before you pass it through the blender, so you don't burn yourself. And you let the soup cool down a bit before you put it in the plastic containers, and you let it cool down or become room temperature before you put it in the freezer, otherwise you'll get condensation on top of the container, and I guess that's how I end up getting the the pieces of ice on top of the soup. So I hope everyone has a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.